This video is going to be two parts. First part is going to be how to actually design a Minecraft pig in SketchUp. Second part of this video is going to be how to take that particular file, export it, and print it on a 3D printer. I'm going to preface this by saying I've never played Minecraft in my life. I don't know anything about Minecraft, but I like running with ideas that my students generate. And I thought I'd make a video about the entire process of how to take something that's designed in SketchUp, export it, and then how to print it on a 3D printer. So stick around. Let's see how this thing goes. Today's video is to teach you how to draw a Minecraft pig and import that pig into a 3D printer and print it. If you don't know how to import an image into SketchUp, jump over onto YouTube and I'm sure there's a video waiting for you somewhere out there about how to do that. If not, hit me up in the comments section and I'll show you as well. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change our model from inches to millimeters. To do that, we're going to go over to the right hand side here, second button up, click here, and I am going to click on the 0.0 millimeter button. After I have that selected, I'm going to go ahead and put that away. This video will work if you are on SketchUp for Schools, if you're on free SketchUp, or you are on any of the downloaded SketchUp versions. Now, the first thing I need to do with my pig is I need to visualize it in shapeform. And if I look at it, it looks like these are squares that have been pulled up to cubes. This is a rectangle, this is a rectangle, and this is a rectangle. I don't know anything about Minecraft. I've actually never played the game, but my students really, really love Minecraft and they wanted to print the pig. And I thought this would be a very, very good instructional mechanism to teach them how to basically create a shape in SketchUp, import it to a 3D printer, and then diagnose their print. So let's go ahead and start drawing our pig. The cool thing with this is if you draw it and your scale doesn't quite look the same thing as me, you can always increase or decrease the size of your components later on to make sure it works. What I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to start by drawing these feet down here. And to do that, I'm going to tap the R key for rectangle. And I'm going to click and I'm going to drag out a rectangle. Let's say it's 100 by 100. 100, comma, 100. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and pull that up. And it looks here like that is actually maybe twice or 3 times the height. So I'm going to pull that up by, let's do 300 mil. And actually, yeah, that looks decent. Once again, I can always rescale this if I want to. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my selection tool or my pointer. I'm going to triple click on it, 1, 2, 3, until it turns entirely blue. The other way to do that is actually to click and drag a box around it. Either way works. After I do that, I'm going to go ahead and make this a component. I'm going to right click on it with my mouse and I'm going to go down to make component. And I'm going to call this a leg. Now, the cool thing about a component is you are basically editing them all at the same time. You're making clones of them. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And I know that I need 4 legs. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to do a copy paste quick key. And a copy paste quick key in SketchUp is you are going to select the item until it turns blue. You're going to tap the M key, Control key, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag out a new leg. And let's just go ahead and snap it there. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to select both of these legs and I'm going to click and drag out a brand new copy. Now, if I hold on the Control key, what you're going to see is that there's a little tiny plus button that appears next to my mouse there. So I'm going to click on that one and that one. And now, once again, I'm going to tap the M key, Control key, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag out my second set of legs. So after I have my 4 legs, I need to figure out how to make those legs look like they have hooves attached. And to do that, I'm actually going to draw a little tiny square down here and a little tiny square down here on my legs. The cool thing about a component is if you edit one, you edit them all. So if I'm making 1,000 of exactly the same part, if I make them components, I'm going to edit one, and the other 999 items, I'm going to edit those as well. So let's go ahead and open up one of our legs. To do that, I need to hit the spacebar tool or hit my selection tool, I am going to double click on it once, twice. And if you notice here how there's a dotted line around it and it actually turns gray, that means I unlocked it. If I just click on it once and it's blue, what that means is that everything that you draw on top of there is not going to stick or it's not going to change the actual component. So I'm going to double click on it once, twice, and then I'm going to hit my tape measure tool with the T button or over here. And I'm going to click and I'm going to drag up from not at the exact middle. Let's drag up by 40 mil, 40. If you look in the bottom right corner of my screen right now, I see I typed 40. I'm going to hit the enter key on my keyboard. Bam. And what you're going to notice here is that this line just appeared here and it also appeared right here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drag from here over by, let's make it 30 mil. And I'm going to click from this side and drag over 30 mil. And now what I do is I can actually use my line tool or my rectangle tool to start drawing those hoops. Hey, I want to pause for a second and talk about editing this video. And what I realized is that many of you might be getting hung up on the dimensions of 30, 50, 60 mil or whatever else it is. And the best I can describe it is that you're using a pencil and a piece of paper and you are drawing a rough shape. Now that shape, once we print it, the first time we might find that it's absolutely atrocious, it's miserable. We want to redo that. And we can always go back to the SketchUp model and we can tweak it. So we are organically drawing it as opposed to when we build furniture where we have to draw it precisely so that everything meshes and fits. We have a lot of flexibility in both the SketchUp software and later on in the Cura software to make sure that this thing actually works. So if your pig does not look exactly the same as mine, that's totally fine. Just get the basic shape down and we'll tweak it further later on in the video. Hoops. Now with the 3D printer, you can change filament colors and you could precisely hone in and you could change this to a black filament or whatever else. We are going to change our design a little bit because we can't print texture in a flat surface. We're actually going to pull those out to give it more of a hoof-like shape. I'm going to jump over and grab my line tool and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag once, twice, 3 times. Now, if I do that and I jump over my push-pull tool, I should be able to pull this out. And I'm going to pull this out by 6 mil. And I'll put dimensions on here later on if you want to hit the pause button on that. Now, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do the exact same thing with actually the rectangle tool. So I'm going to type the R key just to show you a little bit different method. And I'm going to click and I'm going to drag down. Then if I hit the P button, if I click and I drag and I'm holding down my index finger here, watch what happens when I hold it on that face. You see that dotted line that appears right there? What that means is that I'm actually going to snap. I'm going to pull right to that point. I'm going to let go there. Cool thing here is you notice how we have hooves on all 4 of them now? Let's go ahead and hit save before we get any further so we don't lose our work. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start drawing the body here. After I have my legs drawn, what I'm going to do next before I jump into drawing the bodies, I'm actually going to clean up my model. I have a ton of dotted lines. To get rid of those, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the eyeglass here on the side, which says display. And I'm going to click on delete all guides. And it's going to make my model crystal clear before I start drawing the body piece. To draw the body, what I see is a rectangle which overhangs a little bit on this side. It's a little bit short on the back side here. We'll see how that prints. And it overhangs on this side as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my view to looking at more of a top view. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to click from corner to corner, corner to corner, and it should turn in white. After I do that, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up to a point where I think that it visually looks right to me. So let's make that 200 mil. All right. After I have it pulled up to there, I'm going to go ahead and tweak it a little bit. And I'm going to pull this out, let's say by 50 mil. And then I'm going to push the back in by 50 mil as well. Let's see how that looks in comparison to our model here. Picture. Legs a little bit. Yeah, we'll see how that prints. Something that you have to keep in mind when you're designing something is how it prints. So I'm wondering right now if this is going to be a really, really weak joint on our actual printed pig, but we'll see. We'll do a little problem solving. We can always go back and tweak our SketchUp model and then export it again and print it again once we get into the slicing software. All right, so I'm pretty happy with my body here. And the next thing I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to turn this into a component as well, just in case I need to edit it later, so that my other stuff isn't stuck to it. Let's go ahead and triple click on it. 1, 2, 3. Right click and hit Make Component. And we're going to call this the body of the pig. After we draw the body of the pig, we need to draw this ridiculously huge head with a snout and 2 eyes. To do that, I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to draw a rectangle here in the center, and then we're going to pull it out, we'll push it up, and we'll also push it in as well. So let's go ahead and start establishing where we're going to draw those. I'm looking at our model here. So I'm at the tape measure tool. I'm going to click somewhere other than the center. And I'm going to go up. I like that 40 dimension for some reason, 40 mil. And then I'm actually going to click on the side here. I'm looking at our model. I'm going to go over by 60 mil. I click over on this side, and I'm going to go over by 60 mil. And I think that might be enough to start drawing our head shape. After I've done that, I'm going to use my rectangle tool, and I'm actually going to use those dotted lines as a reference, and I'm going to drag and drop down that. And I'm going to start pulling that head out until I think it kind of visually looks right. Looking at this right now, I think that our legs are a little bit ridiculously long, but we're going to tweak those here in a second. So that head looks pretty darn good right there. Let's call that 60 mil. And the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and pull this up by 20 mil. I might actually cut this video right here, and I'm going to add a ton of dimensions onto what my pig is right now and pause for a second. And you should do the same on your SketchUp model and try to get your dimensions as close to mine as possible. Once again, if they're not exactly the same, that is totally fine because we can scale it or we can change the dimensions later on, either in our slicing software and or in our SketchUp model. So let's hit pause, and I'm going to go ahead and throw a bunch of dimensions on this, and we'll come back to it. All right, and we're back, and I threw a bunch of dimensions on here. The legs, the way I drew them right now, which I'm not entirely happy with, but the best way that I can describe this is if you're doing a pencil sketch, this is sort of a free form sketch. Unlike the furniture design SketchUps that we do, a lot of these dimensions are flexible, and it's really dependent upon how well you like your print and if you like your legs long or small or anything else. We're not trying to make a piece which fits into another piece exactly. So my legs are 300 mil tall by 100 by 100. The hooves are 40 by 30, and if I remember correctly, I pulled those out by 6 mil. Let's throw a dimension on there for you before I forget. Yep, I pulled those out by 6 mil. And my body happens to be 500 by 200 mil by 419.19 mil. Now, if yours happens to be 420 or 410 or just 400, that is totally fine. I pulled my head out by 147.34 millimeters, if I could speak, and yours could be 140, it could be 120. It's really, like I said, up to you. If you want to hit the pause button on this video and try to get your pig to look something like mine, your dimensions to look something similar to mine, dimensioning tool, for those of you that don't know, is on the left-hand side here, and it's underneath the tape measure tool, and it's the second one down, which has two little dots and a 3 up top of it. that allows you to click on dimensions. You always have to add dimensions from a corner, and you always have to click 3 times. So let's go ahead and do one more dimension for you just so you can see that. So I'm going to click once, I'm going to click twice, and I'm going to drag out to where I think I want it, and I'm going to click a third time. All right, let's go ahead and draw our snout. For the next part of this video, I'm actually not going to show you how to draw the eyes and the snout and everything else. I'm going to assume that at this point in the video, you know how to draw rectangles, you know how to push and pull them out, and yours is just going to try to get close to what the model is that I imported on the right-hand side. Now, looking at this, I might tweak my snout a little bit. The colors really don't matter in the printing world, but I'm pretty darn happy with this. And once again, this video is intended to get you the basics of how to 3D print, not to make a perfect print every single time. Now, after I have my pig drawn and I'm happy with it, the next thing I need to do is actually inspect it and make sure that it's a solid. And by solid, it means that there is solid, or if I were to fill this full of water, rather, that the water would actually be able to flow through and it would fill up the legs first, and then it would fill all the way up to the tippy top. To do that, the first thing I need to do is actually break my components and groups back down into their original shapes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a box around the entirety of the pig. I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit explode. What that does is it breaks it back down into the individual faces. Okay, after I have that done, the next thing I need to do is actually regroup it. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a box around it again. Right click, and I'm going to make it a group. Previously, this was a grouped head, this was a grouped head, or this was a component leg. And now it's just one solid blue box. And we can jump over to the solid inspector next and actually inspect it and see if we have any printing issues before we move over to the printing software. Right hand side, click on the solid inspector over here. And it says that I have stray edges, and it gives you some details about what that means. I'm going to go ahead and hit the fix errors button. Before I do that, I should mention this is where SketchUp is seeing my errors right here. If you see this sort of reddish, I'm really colorblind. I guess it's reddish color. It's going to go ahead and fix that mistake for me, hopefully. Otherwise, sometimes you have to go in and edit it out. Yep, boom, it did that. Now, if I zoom inside of my model here, I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, so what it did is it got rid of the top of the leg. So once again, of that water analogy, if I fill this up with water, the water would actually flow over. Hey, this video took me quite a long time to edit. It was intended for a student audience, but I posted some other content recently and saw that there was views from Nigeria and all over the world, which is mind-boggling to me as a instructor in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So go ahead and give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a subscribe. Better yet, just leave me a comment that know that you exist and that this video helped you. My hope is to eventually grow the channel and upgrade my gear to make better content. I know my audio isn't great, but I'm shooting this at about 5 a.m. in the morning at my school, and I got a crummy mic and an okay camera. So give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a shout out, subscribe, all that jazz, and we'll see you in the next video.